right, welcome everybody to HealthSparx. I am Michael Walsh, and this is my new show all about the brightest entrepreneurs' innovations in healthcare and technology. Super excited that you're here for my first episode today. We've got an awesome guest. I'm very lucky to have her come on the show for the first time. It's Lisa Maki. She's the CEO of PokitDok. And just in reading her bio, I mean, you can already tell she's got tons of personality. Like just in the first sentence of her bio, it's awesome. She uses the word plucky. And not only does she use the word plucky, but she uses it in reference to the first company she worked at, which was Microsoft. So just reading her bio already and getting to know her a little bit here before the show, lots of personality, a great story to tell. So again, very lucky to have her on the show. Looking forward to a great episode. A couple things I wanted to go through here before we got started. Just a reminder of what HealthSparx is. I threw out the preview episode here like a week or two ago. Put together the show basically as a way to share great stories and content about all the awesome stuff going on in health and technology these days. Right now, healthcare specifically as an industry is just ripe for change and ripe for innovation. Very few industries out there, I feel like, in my opinion, have seen the level of innovation and change that healthcare is seeing right now. So HealthSparx is a way to sort of communicate a lot of these great stories to people and just make people aware of what's going on. Because I mean, even me, I'm in the industry. I'm an entrepreneur myself, and I'm still finding startups that are popping up all the time and figuring out new ways to try and help healthcare evolve and fix some of the problems that we're seeing. So that's goal number one. Goal number two is to try and motivate and inspire some of you guys to maybe take those ideas that you have and build a team and put a product together that can actually, again, take part in this wave of innovation going on in healthcare right now. So plenty of folks out there have great ideas. They've been in healthcare for a while. They see the problems. They have ideas to fix it. They just don't know how to do it. So going to have a bunch of different guests on that can maybe help you get there. Might be an accountant, a lawyer, a developer, an investor, who knows. But I'll get some of those folks on here as well to share some information from their side of things. That way it can help you sort of put some things together on your end and maybe get a company started. And then third, maybe the most important, maybe the least important, I don't know. I mean, it's maybe the least fun of the three, but so much change going on in healthcare right now. And a lot of it's confusing. Same thing. I mean, I'm in the industry and I'm confused by a lot of it. So I want to get some folks on here to teach me and teach you guys what's going on right now. Like, what do some of these words and acronyms mean? What does the legislation mean that's coming out with all the healthcare reform and the Affordable Care Act? And there's so much going on. I know just this past week I was having conversations with people that they're like, I don't know what any of this stuff means. And I'm like, I don't really know what it means either. So let's get some folks on the show that can shed some light on what this all means for everybody and, for your business, for your family, whatever it might be. So again, just summarizing, let's get people on here to share cool stories about their new innovative products and services. Let's talk about startups. Let's talk about how to be an entrepreneur. Maybe you want to be one. Who knows? It's kind of crazy. But definitely want to get some folks on here that can help. And then third, shedding some light and making some sense of what the hell is going on in healthcare right now, because there's a lot. So that's what HealthSparx is all about. I'm your host, Michael Walsh, once again. And a little bit about my background. I'm also an entrepreneur. I have a healthcare technology startup just getting set to launch. I do this, obviously, and then I'm also the founder of Health 2.0 Dallas. Health 2.0 being a very similar organization to HealthSparx in a way, just trying to bring together folks from all different walks of the world and life that have an interest in health and technology, and maybe bring those folks together, learn some different things, network, and launch some new projects, hack healthcare, if you will. So those are the things that I'm kind of big about. I'm also a personal trainer. I work currently for LA Fitness about 15 to 20 hours a week. So between health, business, technology, fitness, I mean, these are my big interest points anyway. So that's kind of why I also got HealthSparx started. It's just fun. It's fun to talk about this stuff. So a couple quick thanks before we get started. Want to thank Satori Tech Solutions. They've been pivotal, just awesome in helping me get the website done and giving me all sorts of great advice on how to run a successful show. Definitely check these guys out. And to my point earlier about trying to get a company started, these guys can help, man. They'll sit down with you. They'll chat about whatever it is that you're thinking about and tell you how to get there. So I'll have some information here on the website for those guys. You can check them out, maybe set a meeting with them. 2 groups here in Dallas, Launch DFW and Innovate DFW, I want to give a shout out to. They've allowed me to write a blog post here a couple weeks ago that wasn't a self-promotion or anything like that, but certainly was able to tell my story a little bit and talk a little bit about my transition from Chicago to Dallas and some things I've learned and some things I'm noticing. So thank you to them for sharing that information and promoting what I'm doing here in Dallas. I appreciate it. Nick Braglia, a buddy of mine back in Chicago, helped me with the HealthSparx logos and designs. So I want to give him a quick shout out on the first episode. Thanks, buddy. And then you can't ever go through a thank you speech without thanking Mom and Dad, right? So thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad. I appreciate everything. Hope all is well in Chicago. Stay warm. Anyway, so moving on to today's show. Yeah, Lisa Maki, CEO of PokitDok. It should be an awesome episode. Let's get started. All right, everybody. On the phone today, we have Lisa Mackey, the CEO of PokitDok. I wanted to quick read her bio here. She sent it over to me. I want to read the bio because it's so awesome. Like, bios typically can be kind of boring. I mean, I know when I put my bio together, it's just a couple sentences of who I am and where I come from. But I read this, and I literally laughed out loud several times. So I want to be sure to read it. Lisa Mackey started her technology career in '89 at a plucky upstart where the dress code consisted of jeans and T-shirts, and the employees were annoyingly happy about going to work every day. Thinking that sounded like something she could handle, she convinced them, or they convinced her, she should definitely learn how to turn on a computer, and her career at Microsoft was born. After a successful stint as their director of program management for consumer products, she took a break to learn landscape design, teach snowboarding in Utah, and co-found Belief Networks, a predictive analytics and semantic intelligence startup, which eventually sold to Benefit Focus in 2010. And after then, she recovered from back surgery. Lisa and her business partner, Ted Tanner, founded PokitDok, which we will talk about today. So very excited to have Lisa here. Lisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Michael. It's great to be here.
So again, we talked a little bit before the show about HealthSparx. It's about entrepreneurs and innovations in health and technology, and that's kind of the best thing about it is I'm not just going to talk about products and services. We want to talk about how cool the people are that are behind those things. So hoping to go through some stuff with you today about your story and how you sort of made it into the startup community, but then also about healthcare and just all the stuff going on in healthcare and all of the opportunity for, innovation and like how ripe the industry is. So let's just get started with you a little bit. I read your bio, but tell us a little bit more about you and kind of how you got into this whole thing. So let's start with maybe just Microsoft, where your career started.
Yeah, so the bio is accurate. I did not know how to turn on a computer when I arrived at Microsoft in 1989, but I had a number of friends who had also gone to Microsoft from Stanford, where I went to college. Mm-hmm. And I started out in user education. I was building online tutorials for a pre-Windows version of Works, if you can imagine, on a 286 computer with real floppy disks.
Oh, yeah.
So all right back when there was dirt. And so it just turned out that I had a lot more technical affinity than I realized. I was very good at understanding what consumers wanted. I worked primarily in consumer product at Microsoft. And I was good at translating that need into something an engineer could build and working with engineering and test and marketing teams to get those products defined, built, and to market efficiently. So 7 years after I started, I did learn to turn a computer on. As you mentioned, I spent some time as director of program management for the consumer division and ended up running a product unit, which at that time was the kids product unit. Microsoft did actually make a ton of kids products at one time. And when I left, we were in the process of figuring out what to transition to the internet, because that was 1996.
Definitely the big thing, yeah.
Right.
Mid-90s.
Right. Seems unbelievable now that we would even have had to think about it, but right. We're taking box product and trying to figure out, okay, how's this go online?
Yeah. Now I'm just curious, hearing that, so you said 7 years at Microsoft, right?
Yes.
Now, real quickly, curious, what was your background? What did you study in college before you started at Microsoft?
Oh, I was the rare and unusual English major
See,
in
and
college.
that is, you laugh, but it's funny because think about how many people out there ask the question every day about like, okay, I studied, yeah, English or whatever, history, God knows, some liberal arts thing, and they're like, how did you become an entrepreneur of a, huge health innovation company, right? Like,
Right.
that's crazy. So yeah, definitely funny. Where did you go to school? I'm curious.
Yeah, so I went to Stanford, and I think you bring up a really important point about liberal arts students. Okay, of course I'm biased, but another good friend of mine and the company is one of our advisors, Peter Biddle, who is now GM of the Compute Continuum platform at Intel. He used to work at Microsoft. He was a creator of BitLocker. He was writer of a paper. It was called the Darknet paper. He was also an English major. And one of the things, and ended up in a highly technical area working on the system side of Microsoft and now Intel. And I think what we bring to the table is an ability to conceptualize what's possible,
Uh-huh.
and then to be able to communicate that clearly so that it can be built.
Yeah.
And we communicate well with people, we can communicate well with teams. That's a strength that we bring to the table.
Right. I mean, you and I talked about this before the call too. I mean, it's just, it doesn't necessarily come down to, in terms of being an entrepreneur or getting into the startup community, it doesn't come down to like what you know or what you knew before this. It just comes down to really just hustle and
Yeah.
your ability to just like, yeah, work hard and put things together and, yeah, like you're saying, communicate, work with folks. Those are things that it doesn't matter what your major is. Like, if you're
No.
good at it, you're good at it.
Well, yeah, if you can come up with an idea or articulate an idea clearly and then make it happen. I mean, the make it happen part is so hard, and they don't teach you how to do that in school.
Sure.
Yeah, that's the part that it's either inherent in you, or you learn it on the job, or you figure it out because you're just someone who doesn't give up. You wake up every day with another idea for how you're going to move the ball forward. You're able to prioritize,
Right.
what's most important that day. Yeah, those things have nothing to do with whether or not you're a mechanical engineer or an English major.
Yeah, and sometimes, like you said, it actually helps to not be a mechanical engineer because especially in the entrepreneur world, things come at you so fast and things change so frequently that oftentimes, I mean, I find this way too because this is just how I think. I'm very logical. I was that business major type.
Mm-hmm.
And very oftentimes I've had to figure out ways to adjust quickly. I've gotten much better at it, but at least at first, I was so structured and corporate and just like methodical in the way I did things that when all this stuff started changing, I'm like, what do I do, right? Like, what?
Right.
How do I handle this? Like, where do I go? What do I do? Like, no one's answering me. No one's responding to me. I didn't prepare for this. Like, blah blah blah. But like that's something about just being an entrepreneur and being good at it is you're able to adapt on the fly and just change directions and go.
You do. It kind of surprises me that there aren't more Buddhists who are entrepreneurs because you have to cultivate a certain level of. It's a very strange. So two things you have to have equally strong skills in: detachment and
Mm-hmm.
passion and attachment. You have to be able to do both at the same time. You have to be absolutely passionate about what you're doing. You have to keep your eye on the long-term goal. To
Right.
get there, you have to not be too attached to any of your beautiful ideas that you might have to kill in
Oh,
order
totally.
to achieve the long-term goal.
Totally.
Yeah, that your conception of the market, what you thought consumers were going to do, any of that, you have to be extraordinarily self-critical. You have to be constantly willing to adapt, as you say. Yeah, it's a really interesting dichotomy.
Yeah, like in some ways, as an entrepreneur, you're supposed to know everything, right? But then in other ways, you should like know nothing. You want to know nothing, so that way you can continue to learn and just act as a sponge every day, right?
That's right. No, it's kind of getting into I know we're at some point we're going back to fitness and health, and I was thinking about one of the other things that I did in the fitness side is I took karate, and
Nice.
one of the things I loved about karate was the concept of the beginner's mind, and that you're constantly trying to approach it as if, as you say, you don't know anything.
Mm-hmm.
And reassessing your assumptions, reassessing your direction based on looking at it anew. What have I missed? What's changing? What do I need to adapt? How do I remain pointed at the goal, but what do I have to do differently today?
Right. Well, and I mean, that's a good segue, I guess. Just so you were at Microsoft 7 years, and then, I mean, what happened? What clicked for you that you decided to take that leap into the startup world with Belief Networks?
Well, so there was some time that passed before I did the startup. I took 10 years and ran my own consulting company. I ended up doing a lot of work back to Microsoft, primarily in their subsidiaries in Asia. I worked with those subsidiaries to help them set up their local businesses and still work effectively with Redmond because there were huge cultural differences between the two, and that was fascinating to help them work those out. I also, as you mentioned, I ran my own landscape design business for a while, kind of got the other side of my brain going. And then Microsoft called me back. They asked me, I did a couple projects for them, and they lured me back into the incubation and research area to work on a large-scale project. It was post-Katrina and the tsunami, and they had a lot of groups from government to humanitarian groups coming to them saying, we can't form a big picture of these events. Our data doesn't talk to each other. We can't communicate and cooperate as well as we should. Can you help us?
Yeah, and such a huge problem these days, just everywhere, kind of.
Oh,
right?
completely. Yeah. It keeps sort of on every level, and particularly when you face these natural disasters. And Microsoft wanted to try to help solve that problem, so I was brought in by the woman in charge of that project to help define that product, research it, and that's when I met my co-founder, Ted Tanner. He was recommended to me as the man who had the architectural and policy experience to architect that solution. He'd come to Microsoft through an acquisition of a startup where he was the VP of R&D called Mongo Music, and that was at the time was a competitor to Pandora, and Microsoft bought it.
Cool. Okay. So you and Ted kind of run with Belief Networks then, sort of under Microsoft's tutelage in a way.
Well, that's interesting because, we put together a proposal, but it was so popular that it with some entities at Microsoft that and Bill Gates was leaving, a lot was going on at Microsoft that our advisors, mentors there advised us, hey, you guys have a lot of passion around this. Why don't you go out and start a company? And, maybe we'll come back around to you. So Ted and I decided we were game for that, and that's where Belief Networks came from. That was 2007. We founded the company 2 days before the mortgage and banking crash. It really couldn't have been more extraordinary timing not to stand up a startup.
No kidding. And that you'll remember that forever, right? Like we were the crazy ones that started a company right before the economy just completely crashed.
So that was great. That was a great experience, trial by fire. I mean, we kept it alive. Our first customers completely disappeared off the map. One of them was Motorola. Who would have thought that Motorola would change so significantly? And we ended up selling it was a big technical platform for taking in all kinds of data, and we sold it into Forbes.com and Daily Candy to help them with page views and ad lift, and had a lot of success there. But we ended up selling it to a benefits data company called Benefit Focus down in Charleston, South Carolina. And we had an offer from Fox at the time, but we thought, I think health is going to be the next big thing. So let's sell to them. Let's take some time and really study the market through the data, help out this company with what they need in the meantime, and learn the health market. That's what we did.
Right. Now, meantime, at some point here, just going back to your bio, you got pretty hurt. Like you hurt your back pretty bad.
I did, and it's tough to figure out exactly when I did that. Was it when I fell out of the tree when I was 6, or was it when I was rowing crew at Stanford, which can be very difficult on your back over time. Right. I did teach snowboarding in Utah, as you mentioned, and that I probably went off some things on my board that I shouldn't have. But at any rate, I started to experience a ton of pain, and I went from taking a few tests away from a black belt in karate, and I was trying to learn how to surf, to barely being able to make my bed. And that was the first time that I ever had to engage with the health system myself in a deep way.
Yeah.
I had an initial surgery. They found these things called synovial cysts. If you look it up on the internet, you'll see this picture that looks like your spine with a rock in the middle of your spinal column.
Well, that sounds awesome.
Yeah. I remember I first searched it and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's exactly how it feels. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so I mean, as I read this and as you're telling me about it, I mean, the way I sort of perceived this is that the idea for PokitDok came out of this experience, did it not?
It did. You're exactly right. I had to go against a very sincere recommendation from a surgeon that I have my spine fused. I was not having any luck having the cysts removed. It kept coming back. I was still in a lot of pain, functionally, movement-wise, not doing too well. But I did not want to have my spine fused. I felt like that would change my active life completely.
Right.
And so I had to sort of say no to the conventional recommendation. I spent 6 months researching my options, all of them of which I'd have to pay out of pocket. It was really hard to find what those options were. And I finally turned out 2 halls over from the surgeon that I sort of politely said no to was an anesthesiologist treating situations like mine with human growth hormone, which was pretty controversial. He was doing a study, having a lot of success with it. And I heard about it just randomly through a friend. And I enrolled in the study. At the same time, I started working with a personal trainer specialized in functional movement. Mm-hmm. And 6 months later, I was pain-free. I went through the process. I built my strength up, my core strength up, and managed to not have that surgery to fuse my spine. And I came away from that going, nobody in this process was trying to hurt me. Everybody was trying to help with what they knew. What was missing was a way to connect that information in a way that was easy for me as a consumer to access, to understand, and make a choice about.
Right.
And that's how my PokitDok was born.
Well, and that's we haven't really talked about it yet, and I kind of wanted to let just your story transition into what PokitDok is. So what is PokitDok, and how does it work, and kind of who you just sort of mentioned, but who specifically is it meant to help?
So when we first started, we thought it was just to help the consumer, and quickly we realized we wanted to help the providers too, that they were equally interested in getting their information in front of people like you and me in understandable ways. So PokitDok connects consumers and providers through a simple marketplace. The providers get to each own their own business page. On that, it takes them 10 minutes or less to claim it. We pre-assemble a lot of information about their career and their practice on there for them. They can add to it, edit it, add their treatments and services and pricing, so it's easily found by consumers who are searching on PokitDok. We also make it easily findable on social networks and through search like Google. Consumers can then search PokitDok by treatment or condition. They can see a list of providers locally or choose to look in another location if they're trying to figure something out for a loved one or a friend. And then they can just see the treatments and services there, or they can also request a quote directly from the provider for the cost of a treatment or service they're interested in. They can submit a budget they have to spend. They can submit a little extra information, and within 72 hours, they'll get an answer back directly from the provider.
Now, yeah, just as we, again, went through some details in the pre-call here, I had a chance to look at this article you had sent me a little bit. I can't remember now where it came from. It was last night I was looking at it. But, they coined you like the Priceline of healthcare, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that left me sort of curious, because, again, Priceline sort of allows you to, the old William Shatner, Captain Kirk, commercials. You can name your own price and things like that. Does PokitDok let you do that as well? Or just submit the budgets and sort of get the information from the provider?
We let you submit the budget. The provider will then accept that amount that you suggest for the procedure, or respond back with what they can do.
Okay.
The price that they can accept. And the providers around PokitDok are quite transparent. That's part of our mission and value to both the consumer and the providers. It gives a way for those providers to present transparently what they do and how much it costs. So We have surgical centers on there that will tell you the price of a knee replacement, something I also need because of my snowboarding career, that includes the facility fee and the anesthesiologist. It's the only price you'll ever pay.
Cool.
So,
Okay.
yeah, so that's that. It's not exactly Priceline, but it's pretty close, and
Yeah.
that's why I call this that.
And it seems like just from doing a little bit of looking at this, it also sort of it can potentially take the insurance company out of this. So like if you want to just pay cash and deal with the provider directly as a consumer, yeah, at least that was my understanding of it. I mean, explain that a little bit to me.
No, you're right. It gives you your three basic options as a consumer today are you're paying with insurance, in which case you can tell the provider that, and based on their relationship with that insurance company, though, they may have to quote your particular price. But if you're paying out of pocket, either because you have a high deductible plan or an HSA account, or you may be, at least until 2014, when we're all supposed to be covered, you may just be paying cash, you can request a cash price, and the provider will quote that to you, often at a discount. There's some policies and things surrounding that, but that's the basic transaction.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it'd probably be so simple it gets so complicated these days with the insurance companies, right? And from my background, coming from the consulting side a couple of years ago and being over on the provider side and sifting through all the reimbursements and things like that they're dealing with, a lot of times they would much rather just talk to you and say, okay, here's your price, pay me cash and we're
Well,
done.
you're exactly right. I mean, it hasn't really been that long in human history that insurance managed our relationship with the provider. We used to just walk into the provider's office and with what we needed, we'd strike a price and we'd do the transaction.
Kaboom, you're done.
Right. And I think for both the provider and the insurance company and our employers and our unions who are maybe covering some portion of our health benefit, we're all incentivized now to try to find the best procedures, the best providers at the best price. And it's not that, we're not in the business of trying to get doctors to take less money. We're in the business of making sure that providers get well compensated and that consumers get all the information that they need to make the best choice and at the lowest cost to everyone, whether it be insurance companies who are processing the claims, or the employers or unions who are covering some portion of it.
Sure.
That's our goal.
Yep. So I'm curious, what's been the go-to-market strategy with this product? Has it been kind of like you said, load the system up with a lot of the information that's out there in terms of providers and then take it straight to the consumers? Or has it been kind of slowly work with some different big provider groups and, work with them, see how they react, see how the consumers react? I mean, what's been the strategy here with getting this thing out there and getting it rolling?
So on the provider side, we started out with over 1 million, and we now have over 3 million provider. That's both traditional medical and holistic providers. Their basic information on PokitDok. We already have that. As they claim their page, they can add additional information about their products and services and the price. We do work with professional associations who, as our distribution partners, like to push this information to their members because they see it as a benefit to their members who are trying to market themselves more effectively to consumers. So we work directly with those professional associations. On the consumer side, when we first did our beta and did our consumer testing, we were doing direct to consumer. But we quickly realized and changed our strategy that consumers were all still in transition. And as we take more responsibility for the cost of our care, and many of us are still, in fact, the large majority of us are still looking for some cues from our employers and our unions and the organizations that have covered some or all of our benefits to date on what's the best path. We're as they're transitioning, how much they cover. We're looking to them to help us make this transition. So we realized that to get PokitDok into the hands of consumers as part of their current health access and benefits workflow, we needed to go to those employers and to those unions and partner with them. And that's what we're doing now.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we're going through a similar type of thing with CareLoop as well. Yeah. And I think a lot of, it's not just you and I, but lots of healthcare startups are having to sort of go through the same path because a lot of these providers are just so accustomed to doing things the old way that if you don't strike up that personal interaction with them from the get-go, you're not going to make it probably, right? Because they're just never going to buy in. Like you almost need to hold their hand from the beginning in a way, just so that they know and they feel comfortable with what's going on.
It's true. I mean, we are lucky that we have some really sort of future forward providers on our platform that are trailblazers as far as the
Nice.
provider. Yeah,
Good.
we've got Erica Bliss and Q Alliance in Seattle. She and her father really spearheaded the direct pay movement for primary care. You've got, Dr. Kevin Smith in Oklahoma City with his surgical center. They're some of the first to post prices all inclusive of the facility, the anesthesiologist, and the surgery. You've got a surgical center, Travel Surgery USA in Charleston, South Carolina. These are real pioneers, and they're showing the way for a lot of the other providers who are making this transition. And then on the consumer side, it's just it's a process, as you know, and their employers and their unions are really thankful when we step in and help with that process.
Yeah, it's the same thing we say with everybody, the providers, when we're working with people through Care Loop here. It's like the consumers, they want this. They're so thirsty for this. Like, you just need to come up with a good value-added way to feed it to them, and they'd love to run with it. You just got to come up with that secret sauce up front, though, and it sounds like you guys are doing a good job. So,
and you. So to you too. I think you've come up with a simple story, and that's the key. That's what we're trying to do as well.
Right. So, I mean, just talk about some goals for this year. Some things that we can be looking out for here. As we're listening to the episode 6 months from now. Let's get you back on. Let's talk about how well we've progressed with goals for PokitDok. So, what are those goals for 2013?
So goals for 2013, immediate goals, we're getting a lot more data, a lot more information in a simple format for you as consumers to see about the providers and services in your area and that you're interested in, to help you make a choice, everything from where that provider went to school to whether or not they have weekend hours and good parking. So we're getting a lot of those just simple but important pieces of information that you need to make a choice. More and more pricing information so you can understand whether or not you're getting a fair and reasonable deal when you're going in to have a procedure or to see a provider. And then on the distribution, on our partnership side, we're just super excited about some of the large employers and unions we're going to be able to work with as they roll these tools and customer programs out, or employee programs out over the next year, that we're going to see consumers really start to step up and take more responsibility and be more demanding and have, and we're seeing more and more providers meeting that need by being really market savvy and competitive. And you'll see PokitDok in that mix, helping those two people, that provider and that consumer, meet and do an exchange.
Yeah, I love it. And I mean, I'm excited to kind of see how it all, I mean, it's already easy to use, but it sounds like you're going to add in even more detail and more more choice for the consumer, but it's not going to overcomplicate it, right? It's just going to keep it the same way, but give options and make it, sort of simple to make these decisions a little bit easier. That's
exactly right. And you said the key thing is we have to keep it simple, because, the reason why this has been so hard to do in the past is that the health industry is so complicated.
Right. Oh, totally.
Yeah. Our job is to cut through that complexity and offer some very simple, easy to understand information and a way for the consumer to act on it.
Right.
And that's our goal.
Well, so again, we've kind of covered a little bit about you and about PokitDok, but probably a good wrap-up topic would be just for those out there that, and we kind of touched on this earlier, for those out there that are thinking about maybe starting a company. There's a lot of people in healthcare, right? And they see things every day. And how many times do we all say a day, like, God, there's got to be a better way to do this, right? Like those people are out there and they just don't really know what to do about it or how to start. So what would your advice be to somebody who's out there right now? It could be anybody, a nurse, a student, a lawyer, a doctor, like that says, I could really start up something in the health and technology arena for myself, just not really sure how to do it. So what do we tell those people?
Well, we tell those people that watch out what you ask for, because you just might get it, when
Yeah, totally.
you found a startup. But main thing, the thing that I have learned, and I had this assumption going in because I've been making software for a long time, and my co-founder and I have participated with teams that have really changed and disrupted industries out there, from publishing to music. So when we looked at what we wanted to do with healthcare, our first, kind of like doctors, your first precept has to be do no harm. Don't, even if you're going to disrupt something, it's because you have provided an alternate reality that could be easier and more efficient than the one that exists, and provide a clear path to get there. And that's what we attempted to do and are doing with PokitDok. What I advise to people out there is perhaps focus less on trying to get people to change their behavior. Obviously, we all want to be healthier. We want to see the people around us be healthier, and
right. Yeah.
And but there's but think more perhaps about getting friction out of the system. How can we connect the dots more efficiently? How can we provide simpler intelligence more in an easier to understand way to both consumers and providers? How can we connect providers more efficiently? Now, there's a lot of cool solutions underway out there. There's a lot more that could be done. And I think the low-hanging fruit has been how many iPhone apps we can release that might change your behavior, teach you how to meditate. But I'm not taking away from the value of that. But I think
right, yeah, they're definitely important.
They're hugely important. But I think we have a bigger opportunity now to look at how we can provide alternate methodologies that will introduce simplicity into the health market, and how do we remove friction. I think of Uber as a great example. Uber removed all the friction for me of getting to the airport to my home.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, if anybody from Uber ever listens to this, like, your company rocks. It's awesome.
Yeah, completely. And I think of them all the time as a great example of how to disrupt a space and provide value to the people, the buyer and the seller in that space. And I use that example all the time when I think about PokitDok and the health. Okay.
Yeah, it's good advice. I mean, you hit a good point, definitely, with the behavior changing. I hear that weekly about especially healthcare, because healthcare, we've talked about it, it's so outdated in a lot of ways that we're not just changing like technologies. We have to go deeper than that. We have to change behavior, right? Like, it's part of it. So plenty of opportunity there, but definitely agree that there's also plenty of friction along the way, that if somebody out there is thinking about an idea, keep their eyes open for some of those friction points, and maybe how you might be able to put something together that could solve it. So great advice, awesome advice to close on. A couple of things I do want to mention, just for those that might be listening, especially if you're a provider, go check out PokitDok. You might already have a listing in there, so go claim it if it's already in there, and if not, go potentially go sign up. Just from my limited time checking out the website here before the show and last night, it's extremely easy. So go check it out, get started. There'll be plenty of information here below the episode on Lisa, how to get a hold of her. Lisa, it's been awesome. I mean, we could talk for another hour about all this stuff, but it's been great having you on. It'd be awesome maybe like 6 months from now, like I said, to get you back and at that point.
Michael, I loved it. Great to talk to you too. Good luck with your company. We'll compare notes in 6 months on where we are. That would be awesome.
All right. Sounds great. Really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. All right, and that's it. Thanks one last time to Lisa for being around. I had a hell of a time chatting with her about PokitDok. Her company sounds awesome, guys. Like, definitely go check it out, PokitDok.com. You providers out there, as I mentioned, you're probably in the system. If she's got 3 million listings in there already, there's a good chance you're there. So check it out. Claim your listing. Take the 10 minutes. Start communicating with consumers via the internet. I know you guys, a lot of you, don't have websites, so this is a good way for you guys to get involved in the conversation. Couple quick announcements from me too. Just right above here, if you haven't subscribed already, subscribe to HealthSparx. That way each week as new episodes come out, I can get the content straight to you, send you tips and advice from people that they talked about on the show, and maybe even include some details from some of the before or after conversations that when I was able to chat with the guests. I'll throw those in the emails as well. Maybe we didn't get to it on the show, but I thought it was important. So definitely subscribe here. One last thing also, always looking for guests. If you're working on some amazing health and technology project right now, I'd love to have you on the show and talk about it. So click be a guest, fill out the form. It comes straight to me. We'll set something up and go from there. So until next time, super excited about today's episode. I thought it went great. Looking forward to lots of great stuff coming up here in the future. I am Michael Walsh. I'm your host. Chat with you soon.